3 days after my child was born, my husband Ha Hua suddenly passed away. In my previous life, my mother-in-law suggested that Ha Quan, the younger brother, take over 2 roles, both as my nominal husband and as the one to raise the child in his brother's place. I firmly refused, choosing to raise the child on my own, acting as both mother and father through countless hardships. On the day my child was accepted into Peking University during the celebratory party, my husband, who had been dead for 18 years, suddenly returned. With him was his childhood sweetheart and unforgettable first love, Luong Thu Nguyet. Right there in front of all our guests, they and the son I had wholeheartedly raised staged a tearful reunion of a happy family. It was then I learned the child I had raised for 18 years was actually the illegitimate son of Luong Thu Nguyet and Ha Hua. My own biological child had been secretly swapped at birth, abandoned by the roadside, and froze to death in the winter cold. The pain turned into blood. I vomited a mouthful of it and collapsed, dying on the spot. I never thought heaven would grant me a chance to live again. And this time, I didn't refuse my mother-in-law's suggestion for Ha Quan to take on both roles. 3 days after giving birth, just like in my previous life, my husband Ha Hua went up the mountain to hunt wild chickens to make nourishing soup for me, then fell off a cliff and disappeared, his body never found. The news of Ha Hua's death had just spread when my mother-in-law, Trieu Kim Thoa, wailed miserably in the yard. She wept for her beloved son while cursing me, blaming me for bringing misfortune and causing his death. Just like before, Trieu Kim Thoa blamed everything on me. She insisted that if I hadn't craved meat, Ha Hua wouldn't have gone hunting. If he hadn't gone, the accident wouldn't have happened. I owed the Ha family a life, and even if I worked like a horse or ox for the rest of my days, it wouldn't be enough to repay them. But this time, I didn't wail in grief like I had before. I simply sat silently on the bed, listening to her cries outside. After living 2 lifetimes, I understood all too well what kind of person Trieu Kim Thoa was. Her loud grieving was nothing more than a performance, because deep down she was afraid I'd abandon the child and leave. She wanted to trap me with morality responsibility, and virtue bind me to stay and raise the child to work endlessly for the Ha family without complaint. In my previous life, I was foolish and let her constant brainwashing convince me I had caused Ha Hua's death. I resigned myself to staying dedicating myself to raising the child and caring for my mother-in-law, believing it was my way to atone. Raising a milk-hungry newborn alone, only those who've experienced it can understand the agony. I was strong. At dawn, I fetched water and cut grass. At nightfall, I hunched in the fields, pulling weeds and spreading fertilizer. For years, I was like a spinning top, never daring to stop for even a moment. Day after day, year after year, I worked without rest. Thankfully, my hardships weren't in vain. My son Daisun never let me down. He got into the city's top high school, then was accepted into a prestigious 985 university. The day I heard the news, I wept and laughed, thinking I had finally tasted some sweetness after years of suffering. But unexpectedly at the celebratory party, the man I thought dead for 18 years appeared before me. Beside him was Luong Thu Nguyet, his childhood sweetheart and first love. Right in front of all our guests, they claimed Daisun was their child. I was completely stunned. The boy I had painstakingly raised for 18 years called Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyet father and mother right in front of me. They even produced a DNA test proving Daisun and I had no blood relation. I was both furious and shocked, screaming to know where my real child was. Ha Hua calmly replied, "He's dead. I originally planned to leave him by the roadside, hoping someone would take him in." Who knew the child's fate was so bitter before anyone could find him, he had already frozen to death. Looking at Ha Hua's cold and heartless face, hearing him casually announce your child is dead, I felt like 100 arrows pierced through my heart. The overwhelming pain made me vomit blood and collapse. I never expected I would have another chance to live again. But now that heaven has granted me this second life, I will absolutely not repeat the mistakes of the past. Outside, Trio Kim Toa was still wailing in utter agony. I paid no attention to her lamenting cries. I simply held my baby close, covered my ears, and slept peacefully. This was my real child. Right after regaining consciousness, I immediately swapped the two babies at the roadside. After one lifetime, the only thing I needed was to protect my own son. Seeing that I didn't break down and confess guilt like I had in the past, didn't shoulder the blame for Ha Hua's death. Trio Kim Thoa, after more than 10 hours of screaming, had no choice but to stop. The dead must be buried. In my previous life, I was overwhelmed with guilt over Ha Hua's death. Even without a body, I didn't let the funeral lack a single thing. As a widow, I paid for a burial plot and even hired a spiritual master to chant scriptures for 3 days and nights. On the day of the burial, I wore mourning clothes, wrapped a white scarf around my head, and knelt every 3 steps, bowing 1 step at a time to send Ha Hua's clothing to its final rest. Because of that, the entire village praised me as virtuous and kind. But in this life, I knew very well Ha Hua had faked his death. Their whole family was plotting against me. I didn't appear. I used the excuse of being physically weak and stayed in bed, refusing to get up. I didn't show up, didn't take any responsibility, so Ha Hua's funeral ended up pitifully simple. No burial land, no chanting. Trio Kim Thoa merely used some of Ha Hua's old clothes, randomly picked a spot to bury them, and called it done. Because I didn't make an appearance for Ha Hua's death, nor fulfilled the role of a good wife, the villagers began to gossip. They said I was a jinx who cursed my husband to death, that I wouldn't be able to raise Ha Hua's child and would soon remarry. Naturally, Trio Kim Toa heard all of this. She no longer had any leverage over me like she did in the past, and in fact she began to feel afraid. The day after Ha Hua's burial, she proactively entered my room. Ngok Lan Hua Nhi is gone now. Mourning won't change anything. You're still alive and life must go on. I held my son and said nothing. Seeing my silence, Trio Kim Toa took the initiative to propose, "It's hard raising a child alone. You know my son Quan Nhi still isn't married. How about the two of you live together so he can help take care of you and the child?" Actually, she said the same thing in my previous life. But she never truly wanted her younger son, the soldier, to be with me. She only said it to appear righteous. In my past life, not knowing Ha Hua had faked his death, I wanted to maintain the image of a virtuous widow and declined. But this time I happily nodded. "I'll follow whatever you say. I have no objections." Seeing me agree so readily, Trio Kim Thoa's expression immediately soured, as if she had swallowed a fly. But once the words were spoken, there was no taking them back. 1 month later, I married my brother-in-law Ha Quan, who was 1 year younger than me. 18 years passed in a flash. I poured even more heart and soul into raising my son Hao Hao than I had in the previous life. Hao Hao was obedient, sensible, and never caused me worry. His academic performance was excellent, and he was deeply filial toward me. Thanks to the memories of my past life, I made completely different choices this time. I no longer spent every day bent over in the fields relying on labor and the mercy of the weather. Instead, I used my previous life's knowledge and set up a small stall to sell goods in the county. In my last life, when I went to the city to give Daison money for school, I happened to hear a street vendor say that they made over 100,000 yuan a month from selling snacks, which left me stunned. In this life, I wanted to seize that opportunity and earn 100,000 yuan a month. Lacking much capital, I started with street vending. When my mother-in-law, Trio Kim Thoa, heard I wanted to go to the county to do business, instead of staying home to serve her, she was furious and tried every possible way to stop me. She wanted me, like before, to stay tied down in the countryside, slaving away at her beck and call. Of course, I didn't listen. Seeing my determination to leave Trio Kim Thoa, threw a tantrum, crying and screaming, "If you go, what will I do? What about the child? I replied coldly. How is my son? Of course I'll take him with me. As for you, you're not that old. Can't you support yourself? My attitude was firm. Trio Kim Toa couldn't do anything especially since Ha Kwan fully supported me. Realizing she couldn't stop me, she had no choice but to give up. The day I left home, Trio Kim Thoa still hurled venomous words at me. Ngo Ngok Lan, if you dare step out that door today, don't even think about coming back. I will never let you set foot in this house again. She was certain I would fail and eventually have to crawl back begging. But I never once thought of returning. No matter how hard or exhausting life got, I was determined to keep moving forward. I would never again become a beast of burden for Trio Kim Thoa. I took all the money I had saved, added it to what Ha Kwan gave me, and started as a street vendor, gradually expanding my business. Eventually, I rented my first storefront. Then, from one shop I grew to 10 and eventually developed it into a large chain brand. While working hard to grow the business, I never neglected my son's education. I took Hao Hao with me from when he was just 3 months old. Whether rain or shine, I always brought him along while I worked. Once he started school, he would study there during class and sit beside me at the stall during summer breaks. Hao Hao was obedient and studious, always among the top students. My hard work paid off. Hao Hao was accepted into the best high school in the province, and my business continued to thrive. To ensure he got into a top university, I hired the best tutors for him. After 3 years of high school, Hao Hao didn't disappoint me. He passed with the highest score in the province and became the provincial valedictorian. The news spread quickly. School administrators and local education officials came to our house to offer congratulations. Our home immediately became a bustling hub. I no longer kept things quiet. I returned to my hometown and threw a grand college entrance celebration for Hao Hao, a total of 188 tables. I invited teachers, classmates, school leaders, and education officials. When the media heard I was holding a lavish celebration for the valedictorian, they reached out wanting to report on the event. And so Hao Hao's university acceptance banquet became a widely celebrated occasion. Villagers had hung red banners everywhere days in advance. Hao Hao's high school took the opportunity to promote their academic achievements as well. News of the event quickly spread. On the day of the celebration, the weather was rare and beautiful, mild sunshine and a gentle breeze. Just as guests had settled into their seats and the host invited me, the mother, to speak about raising a child, 2 uninvited guests suddenly appeared. Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen, just like in the previous life, showed up right on time at the graduation banquet. Though both had aged significantly over the past 18 years, many villagers still recognized them instantly. The man believed to have died 18 years ago, returning alive, shocked everyone, especially my mother-in-law, Trio Kim Thoa. She rushed over frantically. Huan Yi, is that you, my son? You've come back, you unfilial child. You've finally returned. You made your mother worry to death. It's me, Mum. Don't worry, today is a day of great joy, no more crying. Ha Hua beamed as he supported Trio Kim Thoa. My son is now the provincial valedictorian. How could a father not come personally to congratulate him? He said it loudly, making sure the whole village heard. After that line, Trio Kim Thoa's expression instantly darkened, but Ha Hua didn't notice the change. Supporting his mother with one hand, he used the other to pull Luong Thu Nguyen forward. He impatiently asked, "Where is my son? Where's my valedictorian son?" Hao Hao, who had been speaking with school officials, noticed the commotion and stood up. As soon as he saw Hao Hao, Ha Hua dragged Luong Thu Nguyen over excitedly. "Son, it's your father." Luong Thu Nguyen also reached out, trying to grab Hao Hao's hand, and hurriedly introduced, "I'm your biological mother." Hao Hao immediately shook off both their hands and quickly walked up to me. "Mum, what's going on? Are these 2 lunatics or what?" Hearing her son call them lunatics. Ha Hua started to get annoyed. "I'm your father. How could you speak to me like that?" Luong Thu Nguyen chimed in, "That's right. How, we're your real parents nonsense. My real parents are Ha Quan and Ngo Ngok Lan." How firmly replied, "Mum, who are these crazies? Call someone and kick them out," seeing How show no intention of acknowledging them. Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen began to panic. How, you really are our biological son. Ngo Ngok Lan is just your adoptive mother. Please believe us. Impossible. I don't know you. Get out of here, or I'll call the police." How was clearly disgusted, his voice cold and forceful, as he shouted for them to leave. I simply stood with folded arms, coldly observing without saying a word. Seeing how adamant How was, the surrounding villagers also began looking at Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen like they were fools. Humiliated Ha Hua became so furious that he no longer cared about saving face and tore the veil of secrecy right off. "You are the biological son of me and Luong Thu Nguyen." "No way." How didn't want to believe it and turned to me. "Mom, is what they're saying true?" "Say something." I reached out to pat his head and replied firmly, "They're lying. You are my son and your father's son. There's no truer truth." Hearing my confident answer, How immediately let out a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen began to panic. Ha Hua pointed at me and shouted, "Ngo Ngok Lan, stop spouting nonsense. I'm telling you, How is my biological son with Thu Nguyen," I scoffed coldly. "Really? Just because you say so, it must be true. Do things work that conveniently in this world? It is the truth. Let me tell you what really happened. Back then, when you gave birth, Thu Nguyen also gave birth. I secretly swapped the two babies, so How is actually our son mine, and Thu Nguyen's, no doubt about it." The moment he said that, the surrounding crowd burst into a frenzy of chatter. I stared Ha Hua down and asked word by word, "You're saying you swapped my baby? Then tell me, where's the other child now?" Ha Hua avoided my gaze, stammering, "That child, after I took him away, I left him by the roadside. Probably froze to death." As soon as he finished, True Kim Thoa suddenly stood up and slapped Ha Hua hard across the face. The crowd that had been watching the drama unfold was stunned, breaking into loud whispers. "Swapping babies while your wife's giving birth. How could anyone be so heartless and shameless?" Exactly, no matter what, Ngo Ngok Lan still bore his child. How could he just toss his own flesh and blood by the roadside and let it freeze to death? Even a wild beast doesn't eat its own cubs. This Ha Hua is worse than a beast. Hearing all the scorn and curses flying from the crowd, Ha Hua's face darkened. He gritted his teeth and tried to justify himself. "Back then, I didn't marry Ngo Ngok Lan willingly. I've always loved Thu Nguyen. It was only after her husband died that I could finally be with her. We had no choice. It was all forced upon us." Luong Thu Nguyen quickly added, "That's right. We truly love each other. Under those circumstances, we had no other choice." "No other choice, so you let someone else raise your child for you. The two of you sure know how to scheme," I said coldly, showing no mercy. Behind me, How clenched my hand tightly and said with unwavering conviction, "Mum, no matter what, you are the only mother I recognize. As for those others, I don't care who they are." Hearing that, Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen nearly exploded with rage. Ha Hua roared in fury, "I am your father. Why won't you acknowledge me? You may have given me life, but you never raised me. A beast like you doesn't deserve to be my father." Being cursed as worse than animals, both Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen turned bright red with anger. But they didn't dare do anything to How because the reason they came back this time was all about his title as provincial valedictorian. They wanted to cling to him, leech off him, and drain his success for the rest of his life. Unable to lash out at Ha Hua turned his anger toward me, Ngo Ngok Lan. "What are you still doing here? You're just an outsider. This has nothing to do with you. I order you to get out of my house and make way for me and Thu Nguyen." I laughed in contempt. "You want me gone? Based on what you think you're worthy, why wouldn't I be? Back then, you and I never even registered our marriage, so we were never legally married. If that's the case, what right do you have to stay in my house?" Before I could respond, True Kim Thoa stormed over and slapped Ha Hua hard across the face. Ha Hua was stunned. "Mum, why did you hit me? Was anything I said wrong?" True Kim Thoa's face had gone pale. "Shut up! Shut your mouth right now!" But Ha Hua refused to back down. He raised his voice. "All the neighbors here can testify. Ngo Ngok Lan and I were never legally married. The one I truly love and married is Luong Thu. Nguyet, we've registered our marriage. Now that I'm back, Ngo Ngok Lan has no reason to stay in my house any longer. She must move out immediately." After Ha Hua finished speaking, he thought the entire village would instantly side with him. But contrary to his expectations, everyone looked at him as if he were insane. Ha Hua sensed something was wrong. He figured maybe because he hadn't returned for so long, the villagers didn't recognize him and weren't backing him up. Since no one spoke up for him, he decided to act himself. His face twisted with rage. "Ha Hua lunged at me Ngok Lan. You know the truth, so why are you still here? Get lost. Make room for me and Thu Nguyet." His hand had barely reached out when a powerful force shoved him backward. Ha Hua staggered and fell flat on the ground, grimacing in pain and cursing non-stop at whoever had just struck him. When he saw the person clearly, his eyes widened in horror. You... In a green military uniform, Ha Quan stood there, fury blazing in his eyes. Still covered in road dust, he stepped protectively in front of me and Hao Hao. His gaze was icy as he stared down at Ha Hua sprawled on the ground. His lips were pressed into a tight line, clearly suppressing deep anger. Seeing Ha Quan appear, Ha Hua froze for a moment, then quickly grinned with joy. "Xiao Quan, you're back. I came to your unit looking for you, but they wouldn't let me in. Said you were too busy." Ha Quan ignored him and turned to me with concern in his voice. "Are you hurt? I'm fine." I shook my head. Seeing Ha Quan focus only on me, not sparing him a glance, Ha Hua grew furious. He got up and moved closer. "Xiao Quan, you came back just in time. I need your help with something." Help you with what Ha Quan's cold glance made Ha Hua shiver. All these years, while Ha Hua faked his death and enjoyed a carefree life with Luong Thu Nguyet, he had left the entire burden of the household on me and Ha Quan. He thought Ha Quan would eventually leave the army and return to toil in the village caring for the family. He never imagined Ha Quan would rise through the ranks from an enlisted soldier to deputy commander of the military region. When news broke that Ha Quan had become a top leader, Ha Hua eagerly brought Luong Thu Nguyet to his younger brother's unit, hoping to ask for jobs. But they were blocked at the gate by the guards nearly detained for causing a disturbance. With no other choice, they returned to the village planning to ask their mother, True Kim Thoa, to plead with Ha Quan for easy, high-paying jobs. Then came the news that Hao Hao had become provincial valedictorian, joy upon joy for them. So they rushed back to the village, putting on a dramatic show of claiming their son. But the attempt was blocked, and Ha Quan unexpectedly appeared to them. It felt like striking gold. Ignoring his pain, Ha Hua grinned and tried to make conversation. "Xiao Quan, what brought you back?" Ha Quan looked at Ha Hua with such a cold, oppressive gaze that it made him break out in goosebumps. Though confused by his younger brother's expression, Ha Hua still believed blood was thicker than water. Surely Ha Quan would take his side. Feeling reassured, he pointed at me. "That woman you're protecting, you showed up just in time. This woman Ngo Ngok Lan keeps making trouble and stopping me from reclaiming Hao Hao. You'd better help me teach her a lesson." I let out a cold laugh. "Ha Hua, what right do you have to ask Ha Quan to discipline me? I obviously have the right. I'm Xiao Quan's older brother. If he won't listen to me, then who will?" At that moment, Ha Hua acted as if he had found a pillar of strength. He even reached out to Hao Hao, who was standing behind me. "Son, come here to your father. Don't stand by that woman anymore." Hao Hao glared at him. Mature beyond his years, he had understood everything clearly from the earlier conversation. He couldn't accept that someone like Ha Hua could possibly be his father. Mum, is that man really my biological father? Of course not. I gently patted his hand and replied, Son, I raised you myself. You are my biological child, there's no mistake. Your real father isn't Ha Hoa, it's Ha Quan. Upon hearing that Hao Hao's expression finally relaxed, but Ha Hua and Luong Tu Nguyen looked as if they'd been slapped their faces, twisting in rage. Ngo Ngok Lan, what nonsense are you spouting? We've come all this way to tell the truth. Why are you still clinging to a lie? Give us back our child out of respect for the years you raised him. We'll even give you some money in return. But if you refuse, don't blame us for turning nasty, seeing the triumphant expressions of Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen as if victory was already in their grasp. I couldn't help but burst into loud, mocking laughter. Those two fools had always assumed I would obediently follow their plan, willingly raising their child as my own. Unfortunately for them, they couldn't have been more wrong. I had been reborn. How could I possibly repeat the mistakes of my past life and continue to be their beast of burden? From the very first day of my reincarnation, I began laying the groundwork for this moment. I waited patiently, year after year, for today. You could say I endured silently for 18 years just to witness Ha Hua and Luong Tu Nguyen reenact the exact same charade of reclaiming their child, just like in the previous life. Back then, they had revealed the truth at my son's college acceptance celebration, the very child I had raised with blood, sweat, and tears. That ungrateful wolf pup, Ha Dai Sun, turned his back on me without hesitation and acknowledged his biological parents. Never once looking back at the one who had sacrificed everything for him. I was so heartbroken I died of rage on the spot. But this time in this life, what awaits them is the hell I've spent 18 years meticulously crafting. I wasn't ready to expose the truth just yet, because I still wanted to see with my own eyes, would my biological son, would Hao Hao make the same choice that Ha Dai Sun did in the past life? And what pleased me most was that from beginning to end, Hao Hao never once showed the slightest intention of acknowledging Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen, those beasts in human skin. Poison cannot bear sweet fruit and rotten roots can never grow anything good. In my past life, Ha Dai Sun carried Ha Hua's blood. He inherited nothing of my compassion, becoming instead a perfect replica of cruelty, coldness, and shamelessness. But Hao Hao, he carried my blood, and also the blood of his real father. Of course, he wouldn't repeat the tragic path of the past life. That blood bond between us was the clearest proof standing right before me. My heart swelled with emotion. I tightened my grip on Hao Hao's hand and smiled coldly at Ha Hua. Ha Hua. Do you really believe that Hao Hao is your son with Luong Tu? Wit, take a good look at yourselves in the mirror. Do either of you have even a shred of resemblance to my Hao Hao? Hearing my words, both Ha Hua and Luong Tu Nguyen immediately turned to look at Hao Hao. Indeed, not a single feature on his face resembled either of them. They exchanged uneasy glances, but Ha Hua still stubbornly argued I was the one who swapped the babies. I remember it clearly. Hao Hao is my biological son with Thu Nguyen. Even if he doesn't resemble us, I'm sure of it. Ngo Ngok Yishtua Lan, stop living in denial. Your child froze to death years ago, as he shouted. Ha Hua lunged forward, trying to grab Hao Hao away from me. But before I even had to react, Ha Quan stepped in front and forcefully shoved Ha Hua aside. His eyes were steely as he stared Ha Hua down. You can eat whatever you want, but don't speak nonsense. Who says Hao Hao is your son? Let me make this clear. Ha Hua Hao Hao is the son of me and Ngok Lan. What? Ha Hua stared at Ha Quan, completely dumbfounded, as if he couldn't trust his own ears. Triu Kim Toa, who had been silent until now, also finally spoke up. Hua Nhi, I'm happy you're back, but as for Hao Hao, you've made a mistake. He's not your son. He's the biological child of Tu Quan and Ngok Lan. That's impossible, Mum. Have you lost your mind with age? Ha Hua pointed furiously at me. That woman, Ngo Ngok Lan, she gave birth back then. I saw it. I personally swapped the babies. How is my child with Thu Nguyen? It can't be wrong. How isn't your son. He truly isn't. He belongs to Tu Quan and Ngoc Lan. I guarantee you I'm not mistaken. Huan Yi, please stop making a scene. Come home first, we'll talk things through later, all right? Trio Kim Thoa's face had turned ashen. She tried pulling Ha Hua away, repeating those words over and over again. But how could Ha Hua possibly believe it? He had swapped the babies himself. How could he be wrong? His eyes burned as he stared fixedly at me and Ha Quan. Ha Quan, standing tall in his military uniform, exuded an aura of power and command. And I dressed neatly with fair skin and a poised presence did not at all resemble a woman nearing 40. Standing side by side, we looked like a perfect match. Ha Hua couldn't believe his eyes. He rubbed them again and again, then stared at me, then at Luong Thu Nguyen beside him. It was clear. Years ago, when he eloped with Luong Thu Nguyen, she was youthful and beautiful. But now, standing next to me, she looked like she had aged 20 years. Back then, he was bewitched by her beauty and foolishly insisted on running away with her. Now, he was just beginning to realize Luong Thu Nguyen's beauty had long since faded. Standing next to me, she looked like a haggard old woman. That stark contrast filled Ha Hua with bitterness, especially when he saw me being tightly embraced and protected by Ha Quan. His emotions completely collapsed. He shouted in rage, Tu Quan, "You've been bewitched by Ngoc Lan, haven't you? She seduced you with her beauty, didn't she? Shut your mouth. What nonsense are you spouting?" Trio Kim. Thoa shouted and tried to pull Ha Hua away. But Ha Hua refused to go. I must get to the bottom of this. Didn't Ngoc Lan marry me back then? How could she have had a child with Tu Quan? If Hao is really their child, then where is the baby I swapped after all the chaos? The key point was finally touched. I smiled at Trio Kim. Thoa mother Ha Hua wants to know where his and Luong Thu Nguyen's biological child is. Why don't you tell him so he won't keep obsessing over it? Trio Kim. Thoa hesitated, opened her mouth, then said nothing. Seeing that I laughed coldly and suddenly raised my voice, "Dai-sun, your biological parents are here to see you. Come on over." As soon as I said that, a wretched-looking figure appeared in front of Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen. Drooling mouth, crooked eyes, a scarred and filthy face that was terrifyingly ugly. The moment they saw this half-human, half-ghost creature, Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen jumped back in shock. Both stared wide-eyed at the person who had just appeared. "What? What is this thing? It's not a thing. It's named Dai-sun, and he's your biological son." "No way! That's impossible!" Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen screamed in horror. They had come back full of hope to reunite with a smart, outstanding son, a provincial valedictorian. How could they accept that their real child turned out to be such a dumb, hideous creature? Not only could Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen not accept it, but no one in their shoes could. I pointed at Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen, then turned to Ha Dai-sun. "Dai-sun, didn't you always wish to meet your real parents? There they are. Go greet them." Ha Dai-sun, with his drooling, crooked mouth, staggered toward Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen. His slurred voice slipped through his teeth. "Mom, Dad, you finally came back. Get away! Get the hell away from me!" As Ha Dai-sun reached out, Ha Hua violently kicked him aside. He glared at me furiously. "Yo Ngoc Lan. I knew you were up to no good. Where did you find this monster to impersonate my son, you venomous woman?" I burst out laughing. "Ha Hua, you can't even recognize your own child." "Tisk, what kind of parents are you two since you can't remember? Let me jog your memory. Your son has 2 black moles on his left shoulder, correct?" Hearing that both Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyen immediately nodded. Hao, whose hands they were still gripping tightly, spoke up right away. "I don't have any moles on my left shoulder. I have nothing to do with either of you. I turned to Ha Dai-sun, show your parents the 2 moles on your shoulder." Ha Dai-sun pulled down his shirt. On his left shoulder, the two black moles were clearly visible. Hahua and Luong Thu Nguyen's eyes widened, as if they were about to burst. Both screamed in unison, "No way! That's impossible! How could our child turn out like this? That's right. If your baby swap plan had succeeded, someone else would have raised your child from then on, and you two would just sit back and enjoy the benefits. You wanted to be cuckoos laying eggs in another bird's nest, letting others raise your child for you. But too bad heaven has eyes. Your filthy, vile scheme couldn't fool fate. What do you mean by that?" Hahua and Luong Thu Nguyen finally realized something was terribly wrong. Their faces turned ghostly pale. Their whole bodies trembled. I curled my lips into a smirk and enunciated each word clearly. "Let me make it crystal clear for you back then, your plan to swap babies failed. When Hahua tried to secretly switch my child, I woke up and discovered his scheme. Quietly, I switched the babies back and reclaimed my own son. The baby you two heartlessly abandoned by the roadside to freeze to death was not my child. That was your biological son Hahua and Luong Thu Nguyen's own flesh and blood." The moment my words fell, the room exploded into a frenzy of murmurs like a beehive, struck with a stick. Oh my God, this is a real-life swapping the crown prince with a wildcat drama. Thought it only existed in movies, but here it is happening in real life. Exactly, those two heartless people wanted to enjoy the rewards without doing the work. Now look how it all backfired. This is karma. If they hadn't been so cruel back then, their biological child wouldn't have ended up like that. Hearing the crowd's whispers, Luong Thu Nguyen and Hahua desperately shook their heads in denial. "No, absolutely not. Ngo Ngok Lan. You're lying," I sneered coldly. "I'm not lying. Every word I said is the truth." "Hahua, if you don't believe me, try to remember, wasn't your baby swapping plan?" Interrupted that night, I emphasized each word. "That night, someone came to your house to borrow a flashlight, interrupting your plan. Afraid of being caught, you hurriedly stuffed the baby into the straw hat filled with food and went outside to talk. It was at that moment that I woke up, discovered everything, and quietly switched the babies back." Hahua's face turned ghostly pale. With my reminder, he began to recall that night. Indeed, someone had come to borrow a flashlight. In a panic, afraid his plan would be exposed, he had hidden the baby in an old straw hat. So, was Hud Dai's son really his biological son? Hahua stared at the deformed face of Hud Dai's son, began examining every feature closely. And then he noticed Hud Dai's son's eyes looked exactly like his. That realization hit him like a thunderclap. His mind went blank dizzy with disbelief. I let out a faint cold chuckle. "I'm not as cruel as the two of you. When I found out Hahua had abandoned a baby by the roadside to freeze, I couldn't bear it. I used the excuse of asking Mother to take the baby home and raise him. I turned to look at Trio Kim Toa. "Mother, what I said, is it true?" Trio Kim Toa lowered her head, not daring to look at me. "It was Lan who told Mother to bring the child back." I pointed directly at Hahua and Luong Thu Nguyen, the heartless, wolf-hearted couple who gave birth but refused to raise their own child. They brought no benefit to anyone and only brought harm. If there was any justice, karma should have fallen directly on them. But alas, the heavens let that karma fall instead on their child. Hahua roared in anger, pointing a trembling finger at me. "Ngo Ngok Lan, you're truly vicious. If you knew my plan all along, why didn't you stop it? Why did you just stand by and let Dai-san end up like this? Even now he wanted to blame everything on me. How laughable!" I shrugged, responding coldly. "I was already too kind to two people as wicked as you. Normally I had no reason to care whether your child lived or died. But I still told your mother when you yourselves didn't care about your child. How could you expect others to raise him? Why should anyone else carry that burden for you? Mother, am I wrong?" At that final question, I turned to Trio Kim Thoa. She lowered her head even further, not daring to respond, only gave a quiet nod. As for what happened back then, Trio Kim Toa was far from innocent. She clearly knew about Ha Hua and Luong Tu Nguyet's secret affair. She even helped them cover up their filthy actions. In my previous life, I had been clueless and naive, but after being reborn, I remained constantly alert around them. I had seen Trio Kim Toa sneak chicken eggs to Luong Tu Nguyet. I'd seen her secretly prepare 2 sets of baby clothes. Even when Ha Hua and Luong Tu Nguyet planned to switch the babies she knew perfectly well, and yet she didn't stop it. On the contrary, she calculated to become an accomplice. That's why I could never forgive Trio Kim Thoa so easily. The very next day after I secretly swapped the babies back, I deliberately told her, "Last night I dreamed I heard a baby crying outside the village's earth god shrine." Trio Kim Thoa's face went stiff. She snapped, "You heard wrong." I didn't expose her flustered reaction. Right in front of her, I undressed, How showing her clearly that there were no 2 black moles on his left shoulder. Then I added, in my dream, the baby at the earth god shrine had 2 black moles on his shoulder. Upon hearing that, Trio Kim Thoa instantly panicked. Luong Thu Nguyet had given birth half a month earlier than I had. At the time, Trio Kim Toa had been the one assisting in the birth, so she knew perfectly well what that baby looked like. After hearing what I said, she panicked and ran out the door. And then she saw the tragic sight of the child abandoned at the earth god shrine, the biological son of Ha Hua and Luong Tu Nguyet. Blood is thicker than water. If not for that deep bond of blood, why else would Trio Kim Toa have been kind enough to bring that child back and raise him? I cast a mocking glance at the dazed and devastated faces of Ha Hua and Luong Tu Nguyet, then continued exposing the entire truth. That day, my mother-in-law arrived a little late. The child had already been bitten in the face by a wild dog, and because of the freezing weather, developed a high fever that wouldn't subside, ultimately resulting in brain damage. Though we tried everything to save him, he only had a sliver of life left. He would live the rest of his days as a cripple. Trio Kim Thoa still kept her head down, not daring to look at me. I didn't care what she was thinking. I turned to Luong Thu Nguyet, who was trembling like she was about to collapse. Now that the child's biological parents had returned, I handed him over to them. I hoped they could treat him kindly. Then I turned to Ha Dai-son with a meaningful smile. Dai-son, from today onward, you can be reunited with your real parents. I hope you live a happy and joyful life. The truth had just come to light. Ha Dai-son, the child who had always longed to be loved by his real parents, immediately clung tightly to Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyet, refusing to let go. He cried out non-stop, "Dad, Mum." His pitiful cries brought tears to the eyes of onlookers. But to Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyet, that scene was nothing short of a nightmare. The more they looked at Dai-son, the more nauseated they felt. They tried to sneak away, but it wasn't going to be that easy. The villagers had completely surrounded them and even alerted the local police. With police and commune officials involved, Ha Hua and Luong Thu Nguyet had no way to escape. In the end, they had no choice but to reluctantly take their disabled son, Ha Dai-son, home with them. As for me, after treating the villagers to a feast in celebration, I returned to the city with my son, Hao Hao, and my husband, Ha Quan. On the way home, Hao Hao remained quiet and heavy-hearted. This child had always been sensitive and understanding. Since young, I knew exactly what he was thinking. Ha Quan was driving up front, and there were only the 3 of us in the car. I decided not to hide anything and spoke plainly. Hao Hao, you are the biological child of your father and me. Hao Hao immediately looked up. Mum, you're not lying to me, are you? I really am Dad's biological son. Not Ha Hua's, of course. Ha Quan, still driving, nodded in confirmation. Kiddo, you are definitely the son of your mum and me, without a doubt. But, Mum, you were once married to Ha Hua, so how can I be Dad's son? I knew this wasn't easy to explain, but if I didn't clarify, he would carry a psychological burden. So I told him the truth. Mum never shared a bed with Ha Hua. He forced me into that marriage. In his heart, he always loved Luong Thu Nguyet. On our wedding night, I got him drunk and went to find your dad. At this point, I couldn't help blushing with shame. Back then, I had been reborn at the wrong time, already married into the Ha family as Ha Hua's legal wife. But after living one life already, how could I be foolish enough to tie myself to a scumbag like him again? Luckily, Ha Quan was home on leave at the time. I immediately targeted him because I knew his future would change completely. From a lowly private, he would rise to a position of great power. So I shamelessly plotted against him once I seduced him. Of course, I would never admit that part. I couldn't let the man I loved carry a mental burden. I only told him I had always liked him. I even told him clearly that Ha Hua never loved me, his heart was with Luong Thuongwit. After that fateful night, I became pregnant. I had once feared that Ha Quan wouldn't accept the child. But to my surprise, when I had Trio Kim Toa go find him, not only did Ha Quan not deny it, he readily agreed to marry me. Ha Quan and I took Hao Hao to rest for 2 days, and then Trio Kim Toa started calling non-stop like a ghost chasing after us. She said there was something important to discuss and demanded that Ha Quan and I return immediately. I didn't let my husband and son go with me. I drove back to the village myself with a driver and a bodyguard in tow. When Trio Kim Thoa saw me return in a gleaming luxury car accompanied by a driver and bodyguard, her eyes nearly popped out of her head in shock. It was only then that she realized I wasn't just some street vendor hustling at the market, but a true businesswoman of wealth and power. It was understandable that Trio Kim Toa didn't know my situation back then when I left with Hao Hao and abandoned the disfigured Ha Dai-sun to her care. She had grabbed me crying and screaming. She even said something cruel: "If you leave, don't ever come back." I had no more affection left for her. In my past life, she and Ha Hua schemed against me so cruelly, how could I still feel any warmth? But after all, she was Ha Quan's biological mother. Since I had married him, I had a duty to help take care of his aging mother. So once I became successful, I still sent her money regularly. It's just that every time I came back, I deliberately dressed in ragged, shabby clothes, making her think I was living in hardship and struggle. When she finally saw with her own eyes that I had become a woman with assets worth hundreds of millions, she was stunned, murmuring, "Oh my God, this is outrageous," all the while secretly dialing a number on her old brick phone. I pretended not to see, letting her play whatever trick she had in mind. About 10 minutes later, Ha Hua came running back panting. I sat cross-legged on the chair, looking at him coldly. "Speak. Why did you call me back, Ha Hua?" Timidly didn't dare come near me. "I heard from Mom that you've struck it rich. So, how much money do you have now?" "What does that have to do with you?" I replied curtly, not even looking at him. Ha Hua knew I wouldn't treat him kindly, but he still hesitated for a moment before gritting his teeth and speaking. "Can you lend us some money? Think of it as a loan. Won't you give it?" "What are you saying? We're still family. Now that you're rich, helping us a little isn't too much to ask, is it?" "Why should I help?" I sneered. "Ha Hua, when dealing with a beast like you, heartless and cruel, do I need a reason?" Seeing the disgust in my eyes, Ha Hua grew angry and raised his chin in defiance. "No, Ngok Lan. I didn't call you back today to negotiate, but to inform you. I'm telling you, you have no choice but to give me the money. If not, I'll report Ha Quan to the army and accuse him of seducing his sister-in-law. I knew it someone like Ha Hua, vicious and calculating, would try something sooner or later. I didn't expect him to use Ha Quan's future as leverage to extort money from me." I couldn't help but laugh coldly. "Quite the scheme, isn't it?" Of course, Ha Hua's face was full of smug satisfaction. "You have so much money, you won't miss a few bucks." He thought he had found my weak spot. Ha Quan was now a government official. He couldn't afford any negative rumors. "You want to be a politician's wife, then you'd better behave and do as I say." At first he was hesitant, but by the end his tone had turned bold and confident. I laughed. "Want money? That's not impossible, but I'm someone who holds a grudge." Just the fact that you abandoned me back then is enough for me not to give you even a penny. Hearing me say that, Ha Hua immediately defended himself. I didn't mean to leave you. It was that woman Luong Thung Wit who seduced me. She was already married and very persuasive. I was just momentarily blinded and got swept up. Oh, really? So it's all her fault? But that's not what Luong Thung Wit said. She claimed you loved her so much you couldn't bear to leave, even willing to abandon your wife to pursue a married woman like her. She's lying. She's falsely accusing me. I don't care whether it's true or not. All I know is this: my money won't support outsiders. If you want my money, you'll have to cut ties with Luong Thung Wit first. No problem. As long as you give me money, I'll cut her off completely. Ha Hua immediately agreed without hesitation. I smiled slightly. Talk is cheap, but I don't trust your words. I need to see sincerity. I opened the handbag I had brought and took out several stacks of cash. Show me your sincerity. As long as you truly cut ties, I'll give you dozens of times more than this. Ha Hua's eyes immediately gleamed with greedy desire. I slowly put the money back. You can go now. Come back only when you meet my conditions. Ha Hua left. I stood up and walked into the backyard. Ha Dai-sun, with his ugly, dishevelled face, was sitting on the ground, playing alone with a pile of strange little models. I gently approached from behind, stood watching for a moment, then spoke. Is life better for you now? Hearing my voice, Ha Dai-sun jolted and turned around. I saw in his twisted eyes a deep, venomous hatred. I gave a faint smile. 4 years ago, I heard you fell from a building and afterward you were able to speak again, like a normal person. At that time, you asked Trio Kim Toa to call me and begged to meet. Isn't that right? Ha Dai-sun said nothing. I didn't expect him to. Before asking her to call me, you called your biological parents. You thought they would come save you, but they didn't care about your plea. Every day you loitered in the yard stealing melons, picking apples, never doing anything decent. I know you blame the heavens' curse fate for being unfair, but heaven already gave you a chance to be loved. I stared at the silent Ha Dai-sun, each word falling heavy. There's a saying, evil deeds will bring retribution. It's not that it hasn't come, just that it's not time yet. What you did in your past life, you're paying for it now, bit by bit. Don't you agree? Just as I finished speaking, Ha Dai-sun suddenly sprang to his feet. What did you just say? You asking me if I had a good life in the past. Do you feel good abandoning your adoptive mother to die heartbroken only to run back to your cold-blooded biological parents? After getting into university in '98, was your life like a dream? I bet someone as ungrateful and heartless as you didn't get a happy ending. Ha Dai-sun's expression changed rapidly. He stammered, Mom, how do you know I guessed? It's as clear as day. If you could come back, why couldn't I? I sneered coldly. I knew Ha Dai-sun had been reborn 4 years ago. I had just kept silent, never exposing him. I only came back a few years earlier than you. And I had decided from the moment I returned that in this life I would never help a cold-blooded wolf like you ever again. That's why you ended up like this. Let me guess, did your real parents, the ones you insisted on acknowledging, ever truly love you? Definitely not. In their eyes, all they care about is money and gain. They're disgusted by the way you look. You're nothing but a burden to them, aren't you? Ha Dai-sun clenched his fist tightly. I continued nonchalantly, Your real parents are scum. As soon as they saw they couldn't get anything out of you, they wanted to toss you aside. You're worthless, ugly, useless. Then what reason do you even have to exist? With that, I turned and walked away. I knew Ha Dai-sun understood exactly what I meant. 3 days later, shocking news spread across the village. Ha Hua was dead. He had been beaten to death by Ha Dai-sun. The police found Ha Hua's cold, stiff corpse on the mountain. At the foot of the mountain, they also discovered Luong Thung Wit's shattered body. Based on blood traces and DNA on Ha Hua, the police immediately arrested Ha Dai-sun. Luong Thung Wit was dead. The dead can't speak. The only one left alive was Hadai-san, but his mind was unstable, his words were all over the place. From those ramblings, the police pieced together the story. Hahua had lured Luong Thu-nguyen and Hadai-san up the mountain. There he pushed Luong Thu-nguyen off a cliff right in front of their son's eyes. Then he tried to kill Hadai-san too. Hadai-san fled. Hahua chased him. They struggled and fought. In the end, Hadai-san picked up a rock and smashed his biological father's skull. Hahua and Luong Thu-nguyen, the couple once so deeply in love, wandering in romance, finally went to the underworld together to meet Yama. Once bonded in life, now reunited in death, a love that truly ran deep. As for Hadai-san, due to being diagnosed with severe mental illness, he wasn't sentenced to prison but was committed to a psychiatric hospital. In the 3rd month after he was institutionalized, I came to visit. Through the steel bars, I saw a worn-down, unrecognizable Hadai-san, a faint, satisfied smile on his lips. The moment he saw me, Hadai-san began screaming madly and rushed at me only to be stopped by the iron bars. The nurse, thinking it was a violent episode, immediately subdued him for electric shock therapy. After the shocks, he lay on the ground, drenched in sweat, eyes glaring at me with venomous hatred. I folded my arms calmly, looking at his helpless form, and gave a faint chuckle. Stay here and atone from now on. This is the karma you owed me from your past life. Thank you for watching Ken Stories. I hope you enjoyed a relaxing and captivating storytelling experience. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support gives me the motivation to create more amazing content.